Hello YouTubers, this is cessnaace back again with another of my comic book collection, 30 More Comics video. Now I have pulled the next 30 comics in line from my collection, plus 2. Now the 2 additional comics I will be showing near the end of this video. Now today I received packages in the mail containing a total of 15 comics. As it so happens, 2 of them fall, alphanumerically speaking, in such a place as I'll be able to show them in this video. In fact, I'll be able to show them as soon as I start showing comics. Now the other 13 I will not be able to show for quite some time, also because of where they fall in the alphabet. Don't complain to me, I didn't invent the alphabet. However, if you want to know what they are, all you have to do is go to Patreon/cessnaace, as I've been spending several hours each night posting a continually updating list of all the comics that I've got coming my way from now through mid-November. I can do this because the comic book industry operates 3 months in advance. I believe the magazine industry does too. In any event, I can go to Things from Another World and I can find the various things I need, and I create categories where I break everything down. In the case of today, the first category was packages that arrived, and then I list every comic that was a part of that package, the issue number, and when there was a cover variant involved, which cover variant it was, or is, and the artist. Now, to make it easier for me, what I generally do is go to the previous entry, copy everything, paste it into a new entry, and then delete and add as I need to or move around. Now, today I received emails from Things from Another World, so I had to add 17 more comics. Now, I got 15 today. However, I added 17. I was already getting close to 200. I was over 190 in that list. So, I don't think I finished what I was saying. I have categories for those that have just arrived since the previous entry. Also, I have a category for those that I have shipped from, say, Things from Another World, and when they are estimated to arrive here. I have those that have not shipped from Things from Another World, but do have an estimated date of arrival there. So there's a category for that, and I break everything down by date. All 200 some comics. Now, to make things easier on my patrons, what I've done tonight is, with the 17 that I added in there, I placed them where they needed to be under the proper date, and I made them in bold italics so they're easy to see. Anyway, as I believe I mentioned, these first 2 arrived today. This is it's from Archie Comics, and it's a follow-up to an earlier miniseries that they did called Archie vs. Predator. This is issue 1 of Archie vs. Predator 2. Now, this is the main cover. In addition to this, there are 5 variant covers, so 6 covers in all. Now, when I saw this, I was rather curious as to what it would be about. So I was searching around on TFAW's site and noticed that there is a trade paperback that I could pre-order, and which I did pre-order, that reprints all of the issues from the first Archie versus Predator series. This one picks up where that one left off, so I naturally had to do that. Now, I'm not going to show you the interior pages of any of the interior pages of this copy because I have one of the variant covers. Now, Things from Another World refers to this as cover B. However, Archie doesn't. In fact, I'll show you how they identify them. Now, Archie has a licensing agreement with Dynamite. And generally, Dynamite has been releasing the darker series that take place within the Archie universe in Riverdale. I'm talking about series such as Red Sonja and Vampirella Meet Betty and Veronica, for example, published by Dynamite. However, while this series was published by Archie, is published by Archie, Predator is, the comic book rights are owned by Dark Horse, and they have been for a long time. So, they did make some kind of licensing agreement with Dark Horse. They list their staff for Dark Horse Comics and for Archie Comics. And underneath that, in the indicia, which you wouldn't be able to make out if I pushed in so that it was large enough, because it would be out of focus, it says printed monthly by Archie Comic Publications. Now, speaking of, hold that thought. Speaking of Dark Horse Comics, last few years, IDW has had a licensing agreement with Disney to publish comics that take place within the Disney universe, but not superhero related. We're talking about things like Uncle Scrooge. However, going through Things from Another World site, I've noticed that there are upcoming series that are available for pre-order that are going to be published by Dark Horse. Titles like The Little Mermaid, and there's a Mulan series that Dark Horse is going to be publishing, or is in the midst of publishing, done in the style of manga. In fact, manga is in the title. So who wants to wager on whether I pre-ordered them or not? Or subscribed? Alright, moving from Archie to Harvey. This is issue 8 of Beetle Bailey. Growing up in the 60s, used to watch Beetle Bailey animated series, and Howard Morris, he was on Sid Caesar's Your Show of Shows, and he played a character on the Andrew Griffith Show, the hillbilly. What was his name? A hillbilly. Anyway, my mind has lost track. And he was in the Jerry Lewis movie Way, Way Out, which is really hard to find on DVD in this country. However, I do have 2 DVD copies of it, but they came from Europe. Anyway, I would say to make a long story short, but that would remind me of a clip from Clue. Too late. Howard Morris also did a lot of work with Mel Brooks. For example, he played Professor Little Oldman, which everyone called Little Old Man, in his tribute to Alfred Hitchcock, High Anxiety. He was also in The History of the World Part 1, and his voice, I believe, was used in Life Stinks, which is not one of my favorite Mel Brooks films because it got a little preachy. But I did see it in the theater. Saw History of the World Part 1 in the theater, and To Be or Not to Be in a theater, Blazing Saddles in the theater, and Young Frankenstein in the theater. Anyway, that was Harvey, wasn't it? This is Harvey also, but it's a change of pace. This is a one-shot Beetlejuice Horror Day special. Did say holiday, but they crossed that out and wrote Horror Day. Switching back to Archie now. This is issue 45 of Betty. Which I know I've said this sort of thing in the past, but if Archie had any brains, he would tell Veronica to take a hike and he would go with Betty. Just saying. And this from a guy who prefers brunettes. Alright, issue 112. Issue 164. Yes, there are holes in my collection. Big surprise. Issue 197 of Betty and Me. The Teen Queen Supreme. Betty and Veronica, issue 25. Issue 51. I know that I've mentioned this series, not the one I'm showing, but there's another dark Archie series called Jughead the Hunger versus Vampironica, which I now have some issues of. Alright, this is issue 107 of Betty and Veronica. $172. $174. $175. $226. This is issue 226 of Betty and Veronica. Issue 274. That its farewell is misleading. because issue 275 of Betty and Veronica, special giant-sized issue. Farewell, Riverdale. Hello, India. Okay, this is issue 12 of Betty and Veronica Spectacular. #21. And 54. Now we move on to Marvel. In issue 5 of a 6-issue limited series, wouldn't you know, called Beyond. This is issue 1 of Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. A comic book series from Marvel based on the theme track. Sorry, McRandom 42. Ow! That hurts. I don't have her writing crop, but I have a back scratcher. That hurt. Alright, issue 2. And the final issue of this series of my collection, issue 3. I'm kind of curious to see if there were additional issues that were released. So when I do get a more recent price guide in, which I have one on back order, I will be able to check. Now we move on to Boom Studios, which, speaking of Disney, Disney now owns a minority stake in, because Disney bought Fox, 20th Century Fox, and they owned a minority stake in Boom Studios. This is issue 1 of Big Trouble in Little China. Of course, based on the film by John Carpenter. Actually, it's a much better film than it was given credit for when it opened. Okay, we go from issue 1 to issue 3. and we go from issue 3 to issue 10. And then issue 11. And then 15. And finally, for this video, because there are more, 16. Now, as I counted these 3 times, I should have shown 30. So, this is one that I received, I believe, last week. And wouldn't you know it, I subscribed to this series just in time for the final issue. This is also a follow-up to another series that DC Comics published that was called DC's Bombshells. This is issue 19 of Bombshells United. Now, there's a trade paperback reprinting, well, DC's Bombshells originated as a digital comic, and then they printed 2 or 3 issues of each of those into each one of the printed issues of DC's Bombshells. And then they did the same thing with this series. Well, they have since come out with a trade paperback reprinting the printed versions, and I believe I saw a trade paperback on sale, or volumes of a trade paperback series for this. I am just not making much sense today. My dirty mind. For some reason, I saw that the first thing that flashed into my head was Sex and Destroy, which I know doesn't make sense. Warner Brothers has a studio tour now. That's how Universal Studios started before they built their theme parks, was with a studio tour. In fact, they started doing that during the silent era. They would set up bleachers and let people watch filming because, hey, there were silent films and noise wouldn't bother anybody filming. Excuse me. We are out of what I call nasal blowing papers. So I just used a paper towel. And then this says 99 cents on it, but it was free for me because at the time I was getting diamond previews. Thor's a man? That was sarcasm, or facetiousness if you want to go that way. But back when I went to comic book shops on a regular basis, if they had anything sitting there that I was entitled to get for free, I got it. And so yes, I have some things like this, duplicate copies of them because of that. Okay, that makes 32 comics. Shout outs to Mark McElligott and Daniel and Graham, 3 of my Patreon supporters. And also, I need to mention the comic book collector, who apparently doesn't have enough subscribers to trigger auto type or whatever when you start typing an at, and then the comic book, it starts typing in other, or putting up other channel names, and eventually gets to the point where it stops doing that. But I would urge comic book collectors to check out the comic book collector. He is the one that, well, he placed a comment in the comment section of one of my comic book videos. That's how you get my attention. That and letting me, if you do subscribe to my channel, which I would greatly appreciate you doing if you haven't already, let me know that you've done so, because that triggers something in my mind, and or a comment, and I'll click on the person's link there and check out their channel. And I checked out his channel, which led to me subscribing to his channel. And it was because of videos that he did about his Archie digests that got me to subscribing to them. Now, I haven't received any yet, but like I said, 3-month advance window. All right, until next time, stay awesome.